Hey, the 2019 NFL free agency period has been absolutely crazy. Let's take a few minutes, go back and review some of the most interesting signings here over the past few days. What is going on, Headliner Nation? Welcome back. Next episode, Fantasy Headliners. As you can see, once again, joined by Mr. Miguel Chapton. Miguel, how are we doing today?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
Doing good. Hey, today, we're going to talk about some free agency. It's been a crazy couple days here in the NFL as far as free agency. And yes, we've put out, instant reaction videos here over the past week and a half, giving you our instant reaction to these signings, to these trades, whatever they may be. But today we're kind of going to recap it. It happened so fast, so much happened so quickly. We really want to kind of just go back through it and add a little cherry on top to each of these guys. So we're going to go through here. I'm going to have a graphic up on the screen. We're going to go through some of the bigger name signings and kind of give you our outlook on them, mostly from a dynasty perspective. But if we have something to add in there for redraft, draft position, we'll throw that in there also. And like usual, we're not going to take a whole lot of time trying to keep these videos short for you guys. So let's get right into the list. And Miguel, the first one probably on everybody's list is going to be Layin Bell. He's now a member of the New York Football Jets, Jets, Jets. But do we like him with the Jets?
Yeah. He's got no other competition there in the running back position. Sam Darnold is a rookie quarterback. He'll be entering his sophomore year, but he's paired with Adam Gase, and Adam Gase has shown a propensity of using his running backs and getting good fantasy production out of them. You had Jay Ajayi was a top 12 running back once. Even last year, what was his name?
Kenyon Drake and Frank Gore kind of shared it last year.
Yeah, Kenyon Drake even had monster weeks. People expected more from him on a consistent basis, but because he split with Gore, that didn't happen. But that as a whole, Gase still got a lot of production from that position. So will Le'Veon Bell be the same as he was in Pittsburgh? Probably not. But is it good? Is he going to be that far off that it's going to hurt you? Probably not. So I think he's still a safe pick. Probably just not at the top, 3 or whatever he used to be.
Yeah, for the past 3 seasons that he was in Pittsburgh, he averaged right around 2,000 total yards and 10 touchdowns, and his workload was through the roof. I do expect it to be a little bit less, like you said, but he's still somebody worthy, in my opinion, of coming off the board after these other big names we're talking about, the Zekes, the Saquons, the Kamaras, the Todd Gurleys, possibly, all that kind of stuff. That's kind of where he's going to fall in. Always in the past, he's been right there at the top 1 or 2. I'm with you, though. I'm kind of hedging my expectations a little bit because I don't think people need to go in there and expect it to be Pittsburgh 2.0 with the Jets.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect that either, but he'll still deliver plenty of value.
Yeah, absolutely. What about Tevin Coleman? Tevin Coleman is somebody who, coming into last season, we thought if he could get the opportunity, he could set himself up for a huge payday, cash in here in 2019, go somewhere and be the man. And he didn't really cash in 2018. It wasn't a horrible year, but it wasn't a great year for the opportunity that he got. He finds himself now with the San Francisco 49ers and the trio of backs they have there now. What do we think about Tevin Coleman?
Yeah, he didn't cash in and he didn't become the man. I'm a Niner fan, so I'm happy to have him. Obviously, he had a really great season before with Kyle Shanahan, but Tevin Coleman came in to step into the role of the Tevin Coleman role in the Shanahan offense again. So he didn't improve himself in any way from a situations point of view because he's going to still have that same type of role. I don't know. The San Francisco backfield is going to be a bit of a headache. I could see everyone was already talking about that on Twitter, but I'm treating it just like New England. Draft the cheapest one or acquire the cheapest one. If that's Tevin Coleman in your league and he's the cheapest one to trade for, go get him. If it happens to be Matt Breida, then go get Matt Breida. And then same when it comes to drafting, because you don't know which one of these guys is going to lead the backfield week to week. You don't know what's going to happen with injuries. And you don't know who's going to win out the, quote, starting job. If you went by contract and if they keep Jerick McKinnon like they said they're going to, even though they can cut him right now and have 0 penalty towards the cap, then Jerick's probably the guy. And then it would probably be Tevin Coleman and then Matt Breida, only because Matt Breida is still in his rookie contract and he was undrafted or a late-round pick. So that would probably be the way to rank it. But since no one knows how it's all going to shake out, because Matt Breida did play very well last year, you just take the cheapest one and go with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll be surprised. I mean, I really will kind of if they just cut Matt Breida. Now, obviously, it's not a bad business choice. Like you said, not Matt Breida, excuse me, Jerick McKinnon. It's not a bad business choice. It's just crazy how things can change within the span of a year. I mean, last year at this time, he was being made one of the highest paid running backs in football. And the next year, without even playing a down in the regular season, is somebody we're talking about could possibly be cut. It's just crazy.
Right. Yeah. Before the season, I mean, I traded away Tevin Coleman in a deal, and I felt awful about it because I thought he would land in a great spot and all the hopes and dreams we had. And now I'm feeling much better about it. And I traded away Jerick McKinnon, and I started getting FOMO about it and wanting him back. And now I'm like, oh, well, all right, that worked out well too. Like, don't need him back. Unless I can get him super cheap. So.
That's right. All right, next up on the list, what about Mark Ingram? Now, Mark Ingram's somebody who, I mean, we can't really say he chased the money, really, because he only got about $500,000 more per year from the Baltimore Ravens, and they were offering him with the Saints, but now he kind of gets the opportunity to be the man there. He's not hiding in the shadows of Alvin Kamara anymore. The only person he's really got to worry about is Gus Edwards, but before last season, nobody really knew who Gus Edwards even was. Does this kind of get you a little intrigued that Mark Ingram could go out there and be somebody who you could get as possibly, a second-round pick, late second-round pick that could, come up with some huge value in fantasy football?
Yeah, it's amazing how long Mark Ingram was in New Orleans, and for that entire time he was always, paired up with someone else, and he was never the guy. So it's great to finally see him get the opportunity. He's been very fantasy relevant for a long time, and part of that has been being part of a high-powered Drew Brees offense. So it's great to see him land in Baltimore. I think this is a fantastic landing spot for him. Baltimore's always shown propensity for running the ball and running the ball well. And then you got Lamar Jackson, who's a running quarterback, which opens up the lanes for the running backs in that type of system. So I think Mark Ingram would just make a solid, RB2 for any fantasy team. I try to acquire him if I can. I'm sure his price is probably going to go up, and you'll have to kind of balance that and see how much what it's truly worth. But if you can get him at a reasonable price, definitely worth acquiring.
Yeah, one thing I'm worried about Mark Ingram, he's never played a full 16 games in his career, which is kind of something to worry about, to think about. He's not the most durable of backs. But like you said, even in that high-powered Drew Brees offense, the last 3 years, if you don't include last year, I know he had the suspension, the 3 years prior to that, 15, 16, and 17, he averaged 1,300 total yards and right around 9 touchdowns a year. I mean, that's solid production, and now you put him in an offense that relies on the run a lot. He could definitely be somebody with some huge value. Somebody who I think is being a little bit underrated, and you may disagree with me on this one, I don't know for sure yet, but what about Carlos Hyde? I think Carlos Hyde is somebody who was productive there when he was with your 49ers. I mean, his last season there in San Francisco, he had 88 receptions, and then all of a sudden he goes to Cleveland, kind of doesn't get utilized, then he goes to Jacksonville, they don't even use him there. Now he's with the Kansas City Chiefs, and a lot of us like Damian Williams, but how much does Carlos Hyde eat into that backfield in Kansas City?
Yeah, when Carlos Hyde was with us and he got those 88 receptions, it was because he was the only back really on the team at the time. It wasn't because he was efficient with those or because Kyle Shanahan really wanted to throw him the ball, because he really had no other choice but to throw him the ball. But Carlos Hyde is not a great pass catcher. So, and I would expect that if David Williams, and let's say they don't add anyone else, and it's just these two, David Williams is going to probably lead that backfield for the most part. And then Carlos Hyde will probably just play the goal line back, the short yardage guy. Think of it like, Devontae Freeman and Tevin Coleman, like that same type of usage where you'd rather have Devontae Freeman than Tevin Coleman. So Carlos Hyde is interesting. I still want to see what happens in the draft because I could see him being replaced in the draft. Like say they draft Miles Sanders or something like that, then there's a good chance Hyde doesn't even make the team. So kind of wait and see. Interesting for now, but not something I'm buying into. Yeah,
definitely. The draft could really change a whole lot of these things. Absolutely. Let's move on to the wide receiver position. We've talked about a few running backs here. One that just happened here recently, one that was just announced, Golden Tate. I don't know if you've seen it, but did you see him reenact the whole Jerry Maguire scene? Did you see that video?
I saw it on Twitter. I wasn't able to kind of click on it and listen to it all, but it looks pretty hilarious.
Yeah, it was pretty funny, but he finds himself now as I'm doing air quotes for those of you just listening, the OBJ replacement in New York. Golden Tate is somebody who had been productive at his time in Detroit. I mean, he had 90-plus receptions for 4 straight years. He only had 74 last year after bouncing over to Philadelphia. The volume will probably be there for him in New York. But do we really trust Eli to make him fantasy relevant?
Yes and no. Like, yeah, I think the volume will be there. I think he'll be good. Will he be the Golden Tate of old? No. I think your sell window for Golden Tate was, when he got traded to Philadelphia, sometime last year. If you're holding on to him now and you can get anything for him, that's worthwhile, then maybe this is a good time to flip. Otherwise, you're probably holding on to him for the rest of his career at this point. And he'll just be kind of that flex starter on occasion. But yeah, you're not going to be able to trust Eli Manning to get him the ball consistently and score consistently. And now the New York Giants just have a bunch of slot receivers. Like, I just don't get what the New York Giants are doing. No one does. This is the worst rebuild I've ever seen. So good luck with that.
It makes no sense whatsoever. I mean, you can't even look at their roster and be like, well, who does play in the slot? Who plays on the outside? I mean, they're all, like you said, they're all slot receivers. You got Saquon Barkley back there going to get absolutely annihilated because defenses know that he's going to touch the ball a bajillion and 12 times a game.
There's no coherent plan with what they're doing. Like, I can't look at their roster and their moves and be like, oh, this is what they're trying to achieve. Like, I'm just seeing them, well, we just want to spend money and that's about it, and write out Eli because why?
No idea. Yeah, that makes no sense. What about Tyrell Williams? Now, Tyrell Williams has kind of always been in the shadow of Keenan Allen of the Chargers. He's always kind of been inconsistent, big play dependent. Had a decent year back in 2016 where he had 69 receptions, just over 1,000 yards and 7 touchdowns. But now he goes to the Oakland Raiders, opposite of Antonio Brown. To me, honestly, I kind of see him in the same type of role he was just in the Chargers. It's going to be a decent wide receiving option, but he's going to be somebody, second half of the draft, big play dependent, inconsistent from week to week.
Yeah, that's going to be what he is. I was funny because I have a lot of friends that are Raider fans, and that was the one thing I called out. I'm like, why did you guys just spend $44 million on Tyrell Williams when you can get Tyrell Williams like production in the draft? Just draft a couple rookies and you'll be fine. Like, I don't understand why they didn't do that. And it could very well happen that they draft a wide receiver and Tyrell Williams gets, kind of replaced pretty quickly. He was a massive producer in college at a small school in Oregon, but he had a late breakout age. He did have his 1,000-yard season, but again, context is key. Like, the only reason he got that is because Keenan Allen went down week 1 and never came back. Right, he tore his ACL that year. So ever since then, Tyrell Williams, he's not the guy that can just command those level of targets. Like, he's just never been that guy. He's a great complimentary guy. But in an offense with Antonio Brown and Derek Carr as your quarterback, I'm not really banking on a lot of great weeks from Tyrell Williams. It'll be a lot of the same that you've seen before. And, if they add other pass catching backs, or whether it's a running back or a wide receiver, just pass catching options, Tyrell Williams is just Tyrell Williams again, just being paid a lot more to be himself.
Exactly. And we all saw the Instagram live post from Antonio Brown when he was talking about Hollywood coming to Oakland. Now, whether he was referring to Marquise Brown, we don't know. I mean, it won't surprise either one of us. I don't think if they do take that wide receiver in the draft also, and all that's just going to hurt the stock of a Tyrell Williams. Now, the next guy I'm probably going to let you do a little bit more talking on because people already know my take on Devin Funchess. I've had a hashtag here for a couple seasons, and it's always been hashtag never Funchess on this channel. Why? I don't like Devin Funchess. He is out of Carolina now. He does get a great opportunity in a great offense, a lot better than what he had in Carolina up with the Indianapolis Colts. I just can't come to trust Devin Funchess.
I love Funchess. Always have. He's he came into the league super young. I think he was 20, 21 years old. He was productive in college. The only thing is, he went to – it took him a while. No big shocker, right? You enter the league at 20 years old. You're not going to be ready to produce right away. It takes a while to develop your body and to get used to the rigors of the NFL. And then by the time he did, he produced his one top 24 season that he had. And prior to that, he had to deal with Kelvin Benjamin, who – had the first round draft capital at the time, and it was just coming off 1,000-yard season. And, obviously they were still trying to feed him the ball as a result. So it took Devin Funchess a bit to kind of overcome that. But as soon as they realized, hey, KB's terrible, and they shipped him out, Devin Funchess became amazing. He was super fantasy relevant. It's just unfortunate that the Carolina Panthers then drafted DJ Moore, who is better than Funchess. um, and decided to kind of go with like a smaller ball, faster, twitchier type wide receivers. They definitely want to focus their offense on Moore and Curtis Samuel now and CMC. So like that's their new offense. But Funchess, I think, landed in a great spot. Like this is the type of spot I'm willing to take a chance on him with because he's in a high volume offense. He's with a great quarterback, and I can easily see him having a very similar season to what he had just a couple of years ago, where he had about 800 yards and I think 9 touchdowns, something like that, and being close to a top 24, if not a top 24 receiver yet again. I think if it does happen, it'll be at the detriment of Eric Ebron, though, my other fave from last year.
Yeah,
so
exactly. This is Ebron 2.0 with Devin Funchess.
Yeah, I mean, look, he doesn't catch the ball great, like I get it, but as long as he gets the volume, it doesn't matter. So that's all you're hoping for, is that he's in a high volume offense and that he gets a ton of targets to make up for his drops or his inconsistencies as a pass catcher. And he could improve that too, right? I mean, he had Cam Newton as his quarterback, who isn't the most accurate. Now he's going to Andrew Luck, who's complete opposite. So I could see his completion percentages going up. I think just like accuracy, you can improve it a little bit. It's not going to be dramatic. It's like he's going to all of a sudden be like a 65, 70% pass catcher or whatever it is you need him to be. But he could be, a few percentage points better, and that could translate to a ton of fantasy points just by improving a little bit.
Well, I'll think about it. For right now, I'm sticking never Funchess, Miguel. it was a good attempt at a sell, though. But after 2 years of dislike, I'm going to have to, make baby steps on this one. All right, let's move on to Adam Humphries. He's somebody who I think is kind of intriguing. He's always been looking for that opportunity, and maybe he gets it here this year. Last year was his first year that he's had 100 targets in a season, turned it into 76 catches, 816 yards, 5 touchdowns. But now he's in a Tennessee offense which really struggles to get wide receivers involved on a consistent basis. What do you think about Adam Humphries this year?
Adam Humphries is going to go back to being Adam Humphries. He was fortunate that he was in a high-powered offense in Tampa Bay where, they were able to support 3 wide receivers in the top 24, which is incredible. But unfortunately, he's going to the Tennessee Titans. They're not a high-powered offense. You still don't know who Mariota is. He's looking a lot like the next kind of Alex Smith. So I don't expect him to be much more than he was, prior to this year. He'll be a better NFL slot receiver than he will be a fantasy receiver for you. If you got a good season out of him last year, congrats. If you were able to flip him, even more congrats. But at this point, he's done for me. Like, I'm not going to be chasing him at all.
Yeah, that's just not the type of offense that's going to put up numbers on a consistent basis. This is going to be more of a headache than anything. I can see him being the type of guy who's going to come out there one week and he's going to have a great week, 80 yards, 2 touchdowns. People are going to rush to the waiver wire to grab him or trade for him, and then he'll not see any production for 2 or 3 weeks.
Right, yeah, he's just that guy. Yeah, he's nice, but he's not great.
All right, let's move on to a guy that we talked about on Twitter the other night. Let's talk about Donte Moncrief. Now, I know you like Donte Moncrief. You're even doing. Oh, I'm putting that on. You're dancing. I'm putting that on camera. Donte Moncrief finds himself in a great situation. I mean, he moves from arguably the worst passing offense in football last season to arguably one of the best in need of a wide receiver this season. He goes to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, he's never really been a volume guy. He's never had more than 64 receptions in a year. He's never played a full 16 games, and he's only had over 100 targets one time in his career. Now, he's basically the number 2 option, possibly, depending between him and James Washington in Pittsburgh, and he's replacing or filling in a role left by an Antonio Brown, who is abandoning a ton of targets in that offense.
Yeah, I mean, this is what I was hoping for Donte Moncrief to do last year when he was in free agency and signing with a high-volume team or a spot that would give him a shot to be the number 1. Instead, he went to Jacksonville, which was just like, oh, why would you do that? You need to increase your value, not decrease it by going to play portals. But anyway, super excited that he's with the Pittsburgh Steelers. They throw the ball a ton. You still have Ben Roethlisberger there. Juju Smith-Schuster is going to be the wide receiver 1 in that offense, and it looks like he'll still man the slot, and you'll have Moncrief and Washington on the outside. Now, the only question is, well, who's going to get the second most targets? Is it going to be Moncrief or is it going to be Washington? Everyone's racing to get Washington right now, so I'm more than happy to buy low on Moncrief, and if he pans out and he's the number 2 guy, then that will make for huge fantasy production. He did have one great year with the Indianapolis Colts, and you're just kind of hoping for that again. I mean, if you can give me even a top 36 season, I'm going to be stoked. Like, that's super productive. So yeah. I'm happy to see him in Pittsburgh.
I was one of those guys all excited. My tail was wagging for James Washington and everything. And then when I saw the Donte Moncrief signing, I basically just went, crap. You know what I mean? Because it's just like, now you really don't know what is going to happen. Yeah, he's somebody to definitely pay attention to. He could provide some huge value in the middle rounds there of your drafts. His ADP is going to creep up, though, because people are going to start assuming that a lot of these targets start going his way. What about Jameson Crowder? He finally gets out of the abyss of Washington, and now he's with the Jets. But do we care? Personally, I really don't care a whole lot. I mean, I don't really understand that receiving group either. You got Quincy Enunwa, you got Robbie Anderson, Jameson Crowder. I mean, they're decent weapons, but I don't know if I can trust any of them consistently.
I'm excited about this. I was a little bit more excited before the Lev Bell signing, but I'm still willing to buy in on Crowder here, only because if we look at Gase's history, he loves going through his slot receivers. And so this sets up really well for Jameson Crowder to have a bounce-back season and get himself back into the top 24. You know, I mean, obviously, Gase has supported Landry. Landry's on another level than Crowder. I get that. But even last year, we saw Albert Wilson having a really good season before he went down with injury. So Gase loves his slot receiver, loves feeding them targets. Darnold is in his sophomore year. He's going to need, you know, those close to the line of scrimmage throws. And if you've got Robbie Anderson lifting the top off the defense, I think this will just open things up more for Crowder. If I'm only buying one New York Jets receiver, it's probably just going to be Crowder. I'm not going to be buying into Enunwa or Robbie Anderson, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree now. And like you said, after the Bell signing, it kind of just changed things because now a lot more of the offense will be running through him, in my opinion. Well, you mentioned Landry there for a second, so it would be, you know, in our best interest, let's just talk about OBJ for a second, being traded to Cleveland. He wasn't a free agent signing. Yes, we get that. No need to leave a comment down in the comment section. But now that Odell Beckham is a member of the Cleveland Browns, how do you view his fantasy outlook, not only for this year, but in the future? Is it going to be a great move for him? I mean, obviously, in my opinion, he gets an upgrade at quarterback, an upgrade in the offensive scheme being run. It could be really exciting in Cleveland.
I mean, that team is bananas. That is a legit 8-team fantasy football league offense right there. Wow. I mean, it was stunning to see him go there. But yeah, this absolutely helps the rest of his career. Baker Mayfield, to me, is the best quarterback prospect we've seen in a long time. I have no doubt that he's going to be a great quarterback and who knows, maybe even potentially a Hall of Fame quarterback. I mean, I believe in Mayfield that much. So I'm super excited to see Odell Beckham there. I wish I had Odell Beckham somewhere, but I don't. Now trading for him is going to be damn near impossible. But, you know, yeah, his outlook is as good as it can get. If you have Odell Beckham, you should just be doing, you know, dancing every morning when you wake up, because this was the best possible result.
Yeah.
Other than going to Kansas City with Patrick Mahomes. This is the next best.
Yeah, this is the next best option. Him and Landry together. I mean, since high school, they've been playing together off and on. It's definitely going to be exciting to watch these guys. The Browns are going to be on primetime football, I guarantee, at some point this year. That never happened, so that's going to be fun to watch. But yeah, Odell Beckham, right now I think I have him as my wide receiver 3 right behind Adams and D-Hop, but he's right up there in the argument for those top spots. But those were all the major free agent signings here. Is there anybody else you wanted to bring up, Miguel, or do you have anybody else, or no?
No, that's it.
Yep, those were the main ones. We're trying to hit the main ones. Now, obviously, there was a lot of other smaller signings that may lead to some other fantasy outlooks, and we'll be breaking those down in future videos. But want to make sure we went out here, recap this for you guys, kind of give you a little bit more meat on the bones. The reaction videos were meant for what they were. They were quick reactions, keep the news out there, but we really wanted to kind of go into depth a little bit more. But if you have questions, if there are other players that we didn't touch on, throw them down in the comment section. We'd be more than happy to talk to you guys, go back and forth. Love to communicate. We're one of the most interactive channels out there on YouTube. Miguel, thank you very much for joining me once again. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yep, absolutely. We'll have you on here more in the future. Looking forward to it. Headliner Nation's growing like crazy right now. If you're not following us on Twitter, make sure you go out there. Miguel's handle's right there below his name, at Dynasty Guru FF, me at Fantasy Headliners, FNTSY Headliners. We'd love to talk to you, love to interact with you. You guys have a good rest of your week, and we'll talk to you later. Thanks.